Well, Razorback fans, it was another big weekend for Razorback basketball, and it continues to build. So let's go ahead and talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of the John Neighbors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, a mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. So hopefully everybody had a great weekend, as I know we'll have some things to talk about, both football and to baseball. Now, once again, as we've discussed, everybody's always about what's going on in the side of things when it comes to Razorback basketball. And they did get a nice little, we'll call it not surprising, but a nice little gift. And I think there's going to be more to be said before it's all said and done, as Arkansas was able to get four-star wing Billy Richmond to officially commit. He's a 6'6 guard, and this is all according to nattystatesports.com. He's considered the number 20 player in the 2024 class, and he is the number 7 small forward in the country. He played at Camden High School in New Jersey and initially committed to the Wildcats of Kentucky back in 2023, but he did choose Kentucky over Alabama, Memphis, and LSU. So On3.com said, Richmond is a connecting forward prospect. Standing at a lengthy 6'6", he has a projectable frame that should continue to add weight and not lose fluidity or explosion. He is a good passer, sees the floor well, properly weight passes at multiple levels. The jump shot needs work, as it is flat, and shot load is inconsistent. But says Richmond puts pressure on the rim from the wing, and he can quickly turn the defense into offense with the anticipation and aggression in the passing lanes. A switchable defender able to guard on the ball or slide down to defend bigger forwards. Another thing, too, that I thought was really interesting about him is that his dad, Billy, also played for John Calipari at Memphis back in the early 2000s. In February, Richmond said he had a great relationship with Calipari. Richmond averaged 17.6 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 2.6 assists per game for Camden this past season, and recently participated in the prestigious Jordan Brand Classic Showcase. So he's also the third player from the 2024 recruiting class to join the Razorbacks since Calipari's hiring. So there you have it. There is another nice little big get for Arkansas when it comes to all things in the transfer portal, but in this case, dealing with the recruiting class. I know that the transfer portal players are going to come. Like, it's going to start happening here very soon. And when it does, everyone can start getting excited about the possibilities, what it'll mean, and what it'll do for everybody when it comes to, the players that you've already seen in the college basketball landscape and how good it's been. So the question's going to be, though, about the freshmen. Because we've seen Arkansas just 2 seasons ago, I guess technically, have quite a few McDonald's All-Americans as freshmen, with Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh, and Nick Smith. Now, some people may look back at that year and have sort of mixed emotions or mixed feelings about it. But what's unique about that particular situation is that Arkansas had to rely on those true freshmen to come in and be the guys. I know that Trevin Brazile got relied on a bit, but he got hurt. I know that Ricky Council was another guy that they were going to rely on. They were hoping maybe a guy like Jalen Graham would get going. They had other transfers too, but the offense, the success, the talent, the everything relied solely on the success of those freshmen. And when you do that, that can do some good things for you. It can open up some doors for you, but it can also be a pretty frustrating thing to deal with if you're having to rely on them solely. Now, luckily for Arkansas and luckily for Calipari, you're going to have a nice little balance of both. I know Adu, at the time of the recording of this podcast, is yet to make his decision. I know John L. is also yet to make his decision. I believe that they'll get at least one of those guys, I believe, from what I understand. So you'll have some high-quality transfers coming in too. And when you have the high-quality transfers mixed in with the freshmen, that's truly when you can start to build together a recipe for what could be something incredible, something special, something fun. Now, I don't want to put too much pressure on something that's already got so much pressure on it, like what's going on with the Razorback basketball team at this current state. But I'm going to be curious to see how Cal handles the balance act of freshmen and also having elite transfers in. Because to me, I think you can handle it in different ways. You can approach it in different ways. And Cal has seen some success. You know, you think about that national championship team he had at Kentucky that was so good. Granted, you had Anthony Davis, who was a phenomenal player. He's a one-and-done player, as well as a few other one-and-done players that gave a lot of the greatness to that team. But you also had dudes like, of course, his name just escaped me now. I think it was Patrick Patterson. Maybe he wasn't on that team. But I do remember that they had some players that were older players. Some of them were transfers, so it's not really transfers, or some of them were just there from building up and being there and developing for a few years. So you got to be able to strike that balance. And Arkansas is going to have a unique situation where it's such a fresh slate. I mean, you got Cal, brand new coach. You got an assistant coaching staff that's going to be brand new. And you're going to have essentially every single player is going to be brand new. And that's also going to be something crazy to think. Like, it's one thing when you have coaches turnover. We've seen it before. But players stick around. When Muss took over at Arkansas, you still had Isaiah Joe, you still had Mason Jones, still had Desi Sills. You know, you still had a few players from the previous team. But now it's going to be completely brand new. But I think that you're going to have the right guys. You're going to have big men. You're going to have great shooters. You're going to have defense. You're going to have the talent. You're going to have the aspects of the game that we all have wanted to see for so long. But it's a matter of how much trust are you going to put into it? How much time is it going to take? Because that was another thing, too. Think about with Muss. It seemed like it always took time for the team to actually get going. It was a great team at times, but they struggled sometimes in the beginning, especially in conference play. They were trying to figure each other out because they've never played together. Is that going to be one of those deals? Is it going to be one of those years? Is it going to be one of those seasons that you have to go through this and deal with it? Hopefully not, but just saying it's at least going to have. I don't think you're going to have to rely on only transfers. You're not going to only have to rely on only freshmen. You're going to have the balance, and the balance truly is what's the most important thing. Folks, I got to tell you about Monopoly Go here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast because I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. We already talked about it and all that. But there's so much good stuff going on in this game. In the Monopoly Go, you can actually team up with your friends and time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you actually unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friend to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist with other vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go, it feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton new on their unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Pachinko machine. And there's always timed events that can help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything that you need to win or rent freezies. There's always something fun to discover with the Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and download now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The NFL draft happened over the weekend. I don't know if anybody ever knew that or really, cared to know about it. But you did have 2 Razorbacks drafted. I was thinking 3. You only had 2. And you got to give some congratulations to Cam Little, who was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 6th round. As, something about the kickers in Jacksonville. I don't know. They seem like they draft kickers fairly often. And then Bo Limmer was drafted also in the 6th round by the LA Rams. He was the offensive lineman, started 36 games and everything. So congratulations to them. They had other guys sign with free agent deals, which again isn't surprising because it seems to happen pretty much where if any player is a borderline draft, or even some of them that aren't even draft worthy, but they get a chance to sign with a team and a free agency deal and try to make their way up there. And then we've seen some players that have done really well with that. They've gone on to accomplish a lot of great things too. So the thing is, though, is I wanted to bring this up. I saw a thing from Max Preps on social media, which is one of those deals that can really do some great things with recruiting and putting things into perspective. And they had a state-by-state look at where every NFL draft pick played high school football. They had a state-by-state, just the amount of numbers throughout the entire country. And I was looking at the SEC, and it's wild. I mean, you think about Texas has 24, Georgia's 23, Florida has 30. No surprise there. Alabama has 10, Louisiana has 11, Mississippi with 5, Missouri with 4, South Carolina with 3, Tennessee with 4. I think I already said that. Kentucky has 2. But the Lone Ranger in this whole thing is the state of Arkansas with a big goose egg. 0. 0 players drafted in the NFL draft from the state of Arkansas. Now, it's different every single year. We've seen times where players have gotten drafted from the state of Arkansas, and it's been fine. It's worked out. But if that's not just really a telling thing to not only have no players drafted from the state of Arkansas, but then only have 2 players drafted into the NFL, it's kind of a sad and scary thing. I've always felt like the deals with Arkansas in the state and why I'm always confident that they can win a national championship, compete for a national championship in every other sport besides football, has to deal with that right there. And the fact that they don't have the in-state talent, man. Year after year, they just don't have it. There'll be occasions where they'll have a year or 2 where they'll get 2 or 3 4-star players, and maybe they just pan out. But it is really disappointing and discouraging if you're a Razorback fan to see that constantly happening. You have to go outside the state. You have to go into Texas. You got to go into Louisiana. You got to go into Oklahoma. You got to go to these places that had a lot of great players come from that played for you. I mean, think about some of the greatest players just over the past 20 years that did not play in the state of Arkansas and where they come from. I mean, you think about a guy like Niall Davis, who was really good. Alex Collins, really good. Came from Texas and Florida, respectively. You think about Jonathan Williams, came from Texas. There's a while there where you had a lot of players from the state of Louisiana. It seemed like they're really panning out. Think about like Felix Jones from Oklahoma. So point is that you always have players that you can have on your roster to compete at a high level, but just counting on Arkansas to be able to bring it each and every time, that's just not going to happen. That's not the way it's built, and it's not the way it's going to go. So what do? Well, you try to do the best you can in fixing the high school side of things too. Encouraging football in the way it's developed, in the way it's practiced, in the way it's preached, in the way it's used, and having athletes, which at the end of the day get to choose what they want to do. But I've always felt like athletes need to play every sport that they can when they're in junior high and high school, if they want to, because I think that does nothing but benefit them. I mean, how many players have we seen go on to be amazing in one sport, but yet they were dual sport athletes in high school? I mean, we even seen some of them go to in college. I think back to Jameis Winston and Kyler Murray, like 2 guys that were really great football players that also played baseball. So the point is like I'm always wanting them to play multi-sports. And in Arkansas, you have a lot of gifted athletes, but it seems that almost all of the athletes just stick to basketball. Like the best athletes in the state usually just play basketball. Or when they get to the point to where they want to go to college or they're getting scholarship offers, they just stick with basketball and not choose to go for football. And maybe that's not every occasion. Maybe it's a little bit different everywhere else, but that's the thing is Arkansas has always had some really great basketball players year in and year out. But in football, it's just not been there. And I don't know if it's just a simple fix, a simple change. I mean, you can do the things that you need to do. You can try really hard. And I know that Arkansas is pretty limited in the population that they have, but I mean, you're talking about 3.5 million people in this state, and you're telling me with that many people in this state that you can't consistently produce at least 4 to 7 4-star caliber players each year out of the entire state? You can't do that. And I know it's not going to be like that all the time, but it has to be better than what it's been. And you got to be able to recruit at a higher level than what you have in this state. But seeing a stat like that when I was looking at the NFL draft and on all the stuff that came with it, I was like, man, that is really telling. It's really disappointing, but it's also very, very, very telling. So hopefully it changes here very soon. That's the hope. Folks, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and the FanDuel app is where it's your best place to bet on every game, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're also brought to you by the Gametime app, which we know that times can be really tough in dealing with buying tickets. I know that people, like Razorback fans this past weekend, trying to get into the baseball game with the doubleheaders, and some people made changes to come up immediately, and they were trying to find tickets and trying to find them reasonably, and they couldn't do it. Well, it's probably because they didn't have the Gametime app. So they need to download the Gametime app. All you need to download the Gametime app and be able to check out all the different varieties of tickets that you can choose from, not only for sporting events, but also for concerts, for comedy shows, for theater. They have it all. And they have so many things like last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% by buying last-minute tickets, like right there before the door shuts on you. You can get you some really good deals, up to 60% in saving on tickets. You can also save even more with the exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the games or the events. And they also have the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the entire difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime and download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Razorback baseball took care of business again, got another series victory. It wasn't easy at all, as they took care of business against Florida in Baum-Walker Stadium. And they had to play 3 games in 24 hours, essentially. But Arkansas was able to get game 1 victory in what was a very intense battle. And there was one that, of course, Hagen Smith is going to do his thing, which he did. But one of the great plays that was made in this matchup was Jared Sprague-Lott cripping that ball. I wish I could play it. But having that ball hit right to him at third, tossing it home, getting him out, just a clutch play. So nice win there. But then in game 2, it was kind of a similar thing where Arkansas was really close. I mean, it was another 1-run game, and there was really nothing that happened in the first few innings. I mean, it felt like it was trying to, like, waiting to see how the game was going to go. But then, well, Brady Tigert also was really good too, because we know Mason Molina didn't pitch. But Brady Tigert was really good. And then the Hogs took a lead. Aloy and Peyton Holt, both with 2-run home runs, that was able to be a difference maker. And one of the coolest things was the deke play. So crazy. I've never heard the word deke mentioned as much as I have here recently. But it was so they scored a run in the top of the 8th, and Arkansas had a 6-5 lead. But they stranded the bases loaded because actually, I don't think the bases were loaded. I think it was Arkansas actually had runners Florida had runners at the corners. and there was one out, and the ball got hit out into the outfield to Peyton Holt. And as you can imagine, just like in baseball, the runner's going to tag up. Well, it was really cool because Peyton had the know-with-all and the IQ to pump fake it, to deke it, just to act like he was catching it before he actually caught it, which made the runner there at third hesitate and kind of freak out. And when he got it, he just tossed it over the third to try to get him out on the tag. Well, I don't know what it was. He hesitated, but then he just took off. I think he panicked and took off running, and then Jared Sprague was able to throw after getting the ball at third down to home plate and get him out. So just an incredible play, heads-up play, and what Arkansas needed to be able to win the series over Florida. They're 37-7 right now, 16-5 overall in SEC play, and they got a big, big weekend coming up. So it's not going to get any easier, but good to see that they're still winning. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter, BuzzJohnNeighbors, for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.